You have quite a lot of stuff on your desk, Beth.
I'm glad you can't see the rest of it.
You know, it's funny though, is mine looks all nice. That's because moved it out of the way.
Well, you know what Brian does? I'll give away his secret while he's crossing over is he puts everything in one pile so his desk looks really clean, but it's really a lot of stuff in one pile.
I know what I'm looking at right now too.
I was going to say that's what yours looks like. So.
Still waiting for one last thing for my taxes, so I ended up rifling through a giant pile of stuff to double check everything last night before I had to file my extension.
Yep. Brian, I gave away your secret about.
I heard you.
Lack of discretion.
I did try it last week though, and it worked really good. There's George is coming. Maybe. There he goes.
Good morning.
All right. Well, I think we have all we're going to get today. So let's start our regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. Randy is excused. He is on a well-deserved trip somewhere in the tropics. And so we'll start our meeting with public comment. Has anyone come here today with the idea of making a public comment? If so, now is your chance. Just raise your hand and Beth will move you over. Oh, I see only one person's over there. All right, no public comment. We'll close public comment and move on to County Commissioner updates. I don't think I really have anything, so I'll turn it over to you, George.
Okay. We got a little bit of a list. It's stuff that I had already brought up to Randy and the other meeting when I think, well, I don't, you were excused. And so just wanted to have some time to bring some of this stuff up to you as well. So for starters, I reached out to the firm. I know we had talked over the years about some work that Boulder County did, a study related to climate adaptation, and trying to understand what the costs of climate change can be to us, inform good capital planning, etc. And had a good meeting, invited Brian to that. He chose to attend. I think that the next steps are for Brian's staff to look at how they would use this, what they needed to look at, and how they would use it. And I think I'm going off memory, and it was a while back now. I don't think that the cost was what you could describe as exorbitant. Ryan, do you recall?
I don't, but I remember it the same way as not being, I don't have my notes in front of me, but not being extremely expensive.
Okay. So I wanted to give you an update on that. At some point, I might ask for us to actually hire this firm. For now, I think it's appropriate to let staff just think about whether it's something that would be of value to them.
That's I know that we talked about that before. One thing I'm kind of curious about is there any benefit to just having staff analyze what was produced for Boulder, if that's public information?
I think that's part of what we have in mind, Brian, is just kind of taking a look at that other study and seeing what they do. The thing that the methodology of this really is climate modeling, and I was unaware until I spoke to this consultant, but I've since done a little bit of research to make sure I agree with it. Climate modeling has become a lot more precise. And so now they're able to model climate impacts in like a 3 square mile grid. Like how temperature should change, how precipitation should change, and all that. And so the benefit of doing it here would be to get more specific to here, projections of what we might be looking at over the next, I don't remember the time horizon, but it wasn't super long. So just a little heads up on that.
Okay.
We talked about the CCRC, and this one is new. I know there's a conflicting meeting, Sean, with the CCRC, which is this Wednesday. There's also a meeting about this EMS bill at the same time. And I don't know, I mean, you're welcome to either one, but down at CCI, there's been a lot of concerns that I think you've taken a lot of time to think through. And I think you could provide some real benefit to that policy conversation.
Yeah, no, I talked briefly. Well, it's not true. I didn't talk to him, but Semtech had a meeting last week, and Randy Kirkendall, who's the kind of the author or one of the main forces behind the bill, talked about it, as did the Semtech chair. And yeah, I think in whole, it's a good bill, and it's something that we're overdue for. And I did see that you and Jenny had sent me some communications about that over the last day or two, and I have time this afternoon to kind of dig into that and look into it. Is it going to be a Friday this week discussion?
It's Wednesday at 1:30 tomorrow.
Good to know. Do you
Yeah.
know what? I can find out myself too. There's 2 other commissioners on Semtech. Laura Thomas from Douglas County is one of them. Do you know has she taken a position on it?
I don't think she was in attendance at CCI. I think the counties that had concerns were ones, I mean, it's right along the lines of what I've heard from you before. There's some counties that struggle to have any EMS at all, and they're worried about raising the expectations would make it harder for them to find providers.
Yeah. And I don't know, that argument kind of falls on deaf ears with me, because the standards are the standards, right? I mean, all we're talking about is enforcing them on a more uniform way across the whole state, so that when Sean crashes his bike in some backwaters county, the same equipment shows up as if he did it in Idaho Springs or Evergreen.
Yeah, and I think I remember you talking to me about how it makes it hard to do transfers and everything else. So there's that one. Another couple things. I had a conversation with Steve Kroll in the last couple weeks. That's our appointee to the Fire Authority Board. And you might remember in 2019, he had said he wanted to resign, and then said, well, I'll stick on until you find somebody. And then there was not any urgency around finding somebody.
Yeah.
And so we decided to go ahead and make his resignation effective. It was in that appointments document that we passed.
Yep.
And so we now have a vacancy on the Fire Authority Board. And we'll be looking at that. And of course, Fire Authority Board has continued to talk IGA negotiations. And I think we have an executive session set up to discuss that.
Yep.
Another couple of quick things. I know I've talked to you about fire mitigation. I asked for a little bit of staff time to help me think through what that could look like. We had an hour meeting. Fire chiefs were there as well. We put together a proposal that I want to bring to you on May 3rd that is between 1 and 1.5 mils. It would also leverage state funds and kind of get us to what I view as a bare minimum on fire mitigation, forest health efforts.
What does a mill equate to again here in the county? And this would only be for the non-evergreen part of the county, right?
What I'm currently conceiving it is countywide. The Emergency Services District can't do fire mitigation, actually, legally. And so we discovered that. 1 mil is worth around 337,000. Part of what's going on is that the fire departments thought it would be good if this could fund some actual mitigation crews so we can get started on implementation and planning. that decision would, if we wanted to do that in year one, it would get us from 1 to 1.5, and 1 mil is worth $337,000. So that's just a quick heads up for you.
Isn't there some kind of a issue with people on the east side paying twice for one service? Actually paying once for a service they're never going to get.
I don't know. I mean, when you look at, I was at Evergreen Fire Rescue's board meeting and, or not board meeting, candidate forum. And I heard over in that area that there's pretty strong desire to see more mitigation work. And we've been talking to Leslie Dahlkemper and Jeffco. Their community surveys are showing the same thing, sort of that, Evergreen Mountain population. And Evergreen Fire Rescue feels like they could use some help. So just around mitigation planning, and I mean, I can show you the plan.
Yeah. And I'm not to belabor it, but I guess my point, to be a little more direct, is the Evergreen Fire Protection District mill levy is already being paid by all of us over here, and we're already receiving all of the mitigation efforts. And one thing I would say is I think EFR is probably light years ahead of most districts in rural Colorado when it comes to mitigation and what they're doing with their crews. So I don't imagine that any Clear Creek effort would involve more services here.
Yeah, okay, that's really good early feedback, because I'll make sure to flesh that out and talk to Chief Ouija and make sure I understand where he's coming from. I mean, I don't expect him to, weigh in publicly or heavily, but we've been working pretty closely with him to make sure this is something that he likes.
Yeah.
Or that can be a benefit to the Clear Creek Evergreen Fire Rescue District people.
Yeah, I do like that sort of a direction, just because when I think about mitigation, I think about a problem that's been compounding for certainly decades, that no matter how much resources we can muster locally, the problem will continue to get worse faster than whatever we can afford is going to address it. That's not to say we shouldn't do anything. What to me it suggests is we should focus on resources to address and stop small events before they become big events. Because mitigation is going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars, probably even in our small county.
Definitely, and we definitely can't foot that whole bill. The Forest Service's approach is, they've said, we're holding the map, you've got the steering wheel. We kind of need you to build the support for these projects in our communities, and we're going to invest where we see communities that have done the planning and built the support, and that's kind of what this plan is mostly centered around. My response to the Forest Service is, geez, I hope you've got a tank of gas too, which is, the funding, right? So that's fire mitigation. And I've asked for some time on the 3rd, and I'll try to have these questions answered.
Okay.
And then lodging tax reform. This is just a heads up. I want to start a conversation around the lodging tax reform as well. What I want to do is look at, as revenues are growing, sort of what's the amount that the Tourism Bureau needs to continue to be effective, and then what could we do with the rest of it as it grows. It could get pretty interesting about what we would do with the rest of it. When I brought this up with Randy, he mentioned recreation management, and I mentioned the funding source for the multi-jurisdictional housing authority. So that's just a heads up for you on that.
Okay.
I think I have one more here.
No, that might not be a bad kind of a light conversation or initial conversation at the commissioners meeting and mayor's meeting later this week.
Yeah, I think so. And I spoke to Cass about it a bit, and she was worried because the bill says we could take 90% of their revenues. She was worried that was, my intent, because she knew I'd been talking about it. And it's just not right. Like I'm not ready to say that we don't need tourism marketing in Clear Creek County.
I mean, having a wide range like that is probably designed to address all the wide varieties of conditions across the whole state.
Yeah. I mean, in Telluride, they just turned off their marketing because they were sick of it. We might not be there yet, right? So. The only other thing, and I haven't mentioned this to Randy yet, but the the fire authority board would like to talk to us about mills and revenues, and has asked for a session on that as well. For that suppression piece that you were talking about. So yeah, that's all for me, I think, for right now. Maybe one other quick thing. You know, we have Bang the Table, sort of an online an online public engagement tool. CCMRD is invested in some software. Idaho Springs wants to invest in some software. I think these platforms can allow for us to all choose one and kind of all use it, so that when we, identify someone, for example, who lives in Idaho Springs, they become known to all of the local governments, and we can start to kind of focus the public's attention instead of trying to divide it. So interested to see how that conversation can develop.
Yeah, I would personally be somewhat discouraged if we decide to pick different platforms.
Yeah, definitely. That's all from me. My dog says hi.
Okay. Yep. Upon further reflection, I just still don't have anything important to say right now. Brian, over to you.
We have a mayors and commissioners meeting on Thursday. Do we have any thoughts on an agenda?
I think we've talked about two of them, and kind of how much we talk about them remains to be seen. But I think it's probably time to have a out loud conversation in public about the fire authority IGA process and progress, wildfire mitigation, multi-jurisdictional housing authority. Those are the ones that kind of jump to mind immediately for me. Actually, maybe recreation planning too. I mean, I don't know to what degree, because it seems like certainly with the likelihood of the trails coming to life in the gondola in Idaho Springs, that Idaho Springs is going to be much more in the recreation business, whether they like it or not, and having alignment between what we're doing and being able to share the resources that we have, I think would be pretty important. So maybe that's a topic to at least start to bring up.
I could ask Amy to be there to talk a little bit about the ROM. We just met as a team yesterday to review RFPs for the consultant that we're going to be bringing on board.
Yeah,
That could make
that's
sense.
fine with me.
I
You
wouldn't
said-
mind.
I'm gonna make sure we talked fire authority, IGA, wildfire mitigation, recreation management. There was a fourth one that you mentioned, Sean, that I didn't capture.
Lodging tax.
Lodging tax.
Mhm.
And I think
Housing
I've spoken to all of the mayors, but Wendy on this. I didn't want to pester Wendy with something like this while she was having water shortages, from the mayor of Empire, for people listening. And then I think a brief conversation about this, sort of public engagement collaboration. I don't think it needs to take long. I know Idaho Springs is under direction to try to work with us to get something figured out, and it would just be nice to bring this up with the other mayors as well.
Okay. Do you want us as staff to email out an agenda to the attendees, or do you guys want to do that? So it's fine with us, but it's up to you.
I think it usually comes from staff. I think that would be
Yeah.
best.
Okay. And then I got one other item. You all received a letter from the After Prom Committee asking for your support, any kind of donation to help them with their after prom party, which is April 23rd. It's my understanding we've given them about $1,000 out of your budget in the past. So curious to know if you want to help support the after prom party for Clear Creek High School.
Now's when I guess I put on my Scrooge hat. I don't like putting the county in the business of picking people's favorite charities around the county, because there's no shortage of them. And how do we make a fair decision about who we fund and who we don't?
Yeah, and I know in the past we've talked about wanting to have some kind of a process for that. for these kinds of requests. Have we, Brian, was it presented to you that we've done that? Did we do that last year? They probably didn't have one last year.
Beth, can you answer that?
We have funded this a few times in the past, so they're just making the ask like they do each time they have it. So
You know, I'm not too concerned about this one. As I'm just kind of thinking through it in real time, and we know youth behavioral health has been a challenge, and we know a lot of it's due to just isolation and stress of the last couple of years, and helping them put together a nice party and feel good about each other and themselves seems like something I'd like to be part of, but I don't.
The after prom committee is an actual nonprofit.
I highly doubt that.
no, I think
So
it's
maybe that's your distinction. You're just helping to fund a school outing. It's not a nonprofit coming to us. It's just
it's a collaborative of, you know, agencies that put together. They're renting out, I think it's called the Wild Game in
Oh,
Evergreen.
yeah.
So
Usually-
they're having it there. So
It seems like in some ways, I mean, maybe Mountain Youth Network is a lot more aligned with their mission than the county as a whole is. And I don't know if there's a way for funds to be appropriately directed from their budget. I think I would prefer that we at least investigate that before we say yes.
I'd be okay with that. And you said that the event is this week.
April 23rd. Yeah,
Peter, you
Saturday
look
night.
like you got something on your mind.
oh, I got a hand raised. I'm gonna cross over Joni. Maybe. Here she comes. There she is.
Hi, guys, can you hear me?
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
I can, hang on, I can fix that.
There you go. Hi.
Sorry, I apologize to butt in. I heard your conversation. I am a part of the after prom committee. So some of your questions I might be able to answer. I wouldn't say it's a nonprofit. It's all parents, volunteer parents that put the after prom together. And so we get donations all around to help do that. The main reason, I don't think it's really a charity. I think it is a way to keep your kids a little safer in the community. So the community kids, for not, you know, keeping them in one location and trying to keep them safe is the major reason we do the after prom. So just wanted to throw that in there. I know you had some questions, and I'm open to answer questions if you have any.
Yeah, and hey, Joni, thanks for chiming in. I don't have any doubt that this is a good undertaking. My only question is whether it's something that the county should set a precedence by funding, and we've already set a precedence. And yeah, I know that the Mountain Youth Network is much more aligned with you know, behavioral health and with the youth in the community, and if they have the ability to fund it, that would probably be my preference. But they have grant funding too, so I'm sure that they're going to run into some. I'm sure they have some guardrails that they have to stay within.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. They're, you know, they're helping with a lot of things. And really, like, I do agree with George with the mental health and I do know Mountain Youth Network, and that might be something that the after prom committee, which consists of junior parents pretty much, could look at next year, trying to coordinate with them. I apologize, this came out somewhat late. We were running a little behind with the craziness, but would surely appreciate maybe this year if you could help fund, and next year we can tell the parents to try going different routes.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea. And if you're okay with it, George, maybe we could direct staff to make the ask of Mountain Youth Network. And if they're not able to, then maybe we can fund it one last time and make sure that people understand that this probably isn't something we're going to be able to do going forward.
I think that makes sense.
okay. We can do that.
Thanks, Joni.
Thank you. Thanks for shooting me in there.
thanks for being here to help us understand what's going on. And I'm sure Peter will be curious, who will be receiving the funds. And I think you'd be, if you had any kind of real concerns, you'd probably be unmuting yourself.
No, yeah, it's going to the school, directly to the school. After they have a line item at school for after prom. And it is helping with paying for wild game, and then we provide gifts to the kids for games to keep them active and keep them there so they're not shooting off other places.
Makes sense.
All right, that's all I had.
Look at that. We almost stretched this out until 10 o'clock. Is there any problem, Peter, with doing our 10 o'clock items a few minutes early?
Yes, there is.
All right.
So we might as well either take a 5-minute break or talk amongst ourselves, but we have to begin them at 10 o'clock.
Okay. I'm going to go off camera then for 5 minutes and I'll see you all.
Sounds good.
All right, it is now 10 o'clock. So we're back and we are now acting as the local liquor licensing authority. First item on the agenda is consideration approval of special event permit for Team Evergreen. Nanette.
Good morning. I apologize. My network connection keeps disconnecting me. Not that I need that. That's okay. We have first up Team Evergreen. Beth, if you could please cross over Kim Nordquist. She's in the attendee pool. They have applied for their session series event to be held at the Floyd Hill Open Space Park. Their application was complete. We've posted the property for the required 10 days prior to the hearing. Their application is for 5 days. However, they only want to hold the event 4 days. They've listed the 5th day in the event there is a weather delay to allow for that. There were no major problems last year. We didn't receive any complaints from any of our reviewing departments, and all of those reviewing departments have signed off for the event this year. And Kim is here if we have any questions for her.
Hey, Kim. Do you have anything to add to the conversation? This is Sean.
Hey there, sorry about that. I was all muted and hey, no, hi. Yep, we're super excited about the event. I think it's going to be awesome. And I know Elizabeth is trying to get on as well, and she's going to be the person on site for the event. So I don't know if she has a little more to say. She had a meeting with, I believe it's John with the rec center, and they did a site visit. And so she's been discussing how that will go, and they're going to preview the property beforehand and after to make sure that we're, working really well with the environment and respecting that. We've got the overflow parking secured at the high school, Clear Creek High School. So that's awesome. And yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I guess that's not related to the liquor, but what else can I help you guys with?
I think that's it. George, do you have any questions?
None relating to the liquor permit approval, which is what we're here for. Thank you for talking to our recreation staff. I guess maybe one way I could relate this to the liquor permit is just to ask or to express my opinion that it's appropriate, I think, to have recreation staff be a referral agency on permits involving sort of outdoor recreation events. But I see that you were proactive and just talked to them anyway. So, thank you for doing that. And I did hear I think there was some noise from the community about a lot of traffic and that kind of stuff. And so I would just ask you, not related to this permit, just to, maybe reach out to the POAs or something and just make sure they know what's going on and you're doing this in a way that they're happy with.
Great, that's a great. And we are being really respectful with the parking. We have some volunteers that are and we're doing signage to make sure that people are not parking on the roadways because that's, a big deal for that. And then also just to be respectful, to the environment, we are actually placing extra porta potties per the county health department on site. So we're trying to do our part there as well. And yeah.
Great. That's all from me. Thank you.
And Danette, does staff have a recommendation?
We would recommend that the application gets approved.
Okay, and Peter, is this one of the ones where we need public comment, and then after that, is it an administrative approval?
That is correct. No, Nanette, we don't normally take a motion for this, do we?
This one is a full hearing where we need the approval of the board.
Okay, so we do need a motion.
Yeah, so here's where I gotta ask you something else, Peter. I'm actually on the board of Team Evergreen. Does that present any type of a conflict of interest that would prevent me from, I don't have any financial interest in whether this is approved or not.
No, it's not a conflict, and you've just disclosed it anyway and made it public, so you're fine. You've done exactly what you needed to do.
Okay, perfect. So then with that said, is there any public comment related to this application? If so, please raise your hand and Beth will cross you over and you can say what you have to say. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and we'll entertain a motion.
Move we approve special event permit for Team Evergreen.
I second. We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 2-0. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Elizabeth. And yeah, I had the pleasure of joining one of the events last year, and I think it was really an excellent way to kind of leverage the investment the community's made in that park. And there was a lot of people there, but there was also professional parking staff, and I thought it was fairly well managed. I know Brian had a chance to join me. Actually, I think that might have been your sort of first unofficial county event. Okay, well, we'll move on to the next one.
you.
Item number 2, still sitting as the local liquor licensing authority. Consideration approval of special event permit for the Clear Creek Metropolitan Recreation District. Back to you, Nanette.
Excellent. This one is for Canine on the Creek, application submitted by CCMRD. They are a returning applicant for more than 2 years under our resolution 04-210. This one can be approved administratively. After taking public comment, if there is any, the chairman can just approve it at his desire. Application is complete. Property was posted as required by the statute.
Okay, is there anyone here from the Metro District?
I do not believe so.
Okay, then I will again open public comments. Actually, before I do that, George, do you have any questions for staff or any comments?
I don't.
Okay, then I'll open public comment. If anyone came here to make a comment, public comment related to this event, now is your time. Looks like Mike Tansey and Diane Lee just don't have much to say today when it comes to these public discussions. So that I will close public comment, and staff, do you have a recommendation?
I would recommend that the application is approved.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, George.
I was just gonna go ahead. I think we need a motion on this one too. I move we approve the application by Clear Creek Metro District for the Canine on the Creek event.
I thought Nanette said it could be done administratively.
That's correct. Under the
Oh.
provisions of resolution 04-210, it's an administrative.
Oh, well, my apologies.
No, so
Okay,
is
that's okay.
there anything else, George, Brian, Peter, for the good of the order?
I don't want to waste time. Can you help me understand what the difference is between these two special event permits that causes one to need a motion and one not to?
The only difference is Team Evergreen hasn't had their event for 2 consecutive years, and that's the criteria that we put in place when we adopted resolution 04-210. And the main reason was to help streamline these so that we didn't have to have full-blown hearings for all of the events, especially on the ones that were recurring. So on events that are consistent every year, they're the same promoters, the same event holders that we're familiar with. Those ones we sort of push through. And then on new events, we have those folks come in for 2 years, make sure the event's running okay. And then after those 2 years, we'll do those administrative as well. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, George. I was wondering that too. Is there anything else, like I mentioned, for the good of the order?
Just a reminder, we have a meeting on Friday. We have a meeting on Monday. We set the Monday meeting for 8:30. We can certainly move that up to 9. I wanted to throw that out and see what you thought. So this is the meeting where we're gonna be talking expectations for myself and Peter, maybe a continuation of the board dynamics discussion.
So I have a meeting on my calendar at 9:30 on Monday, so I can meet anytime up until then. So I would even be okay meeting at 8 to give ourselves a little bit of, make sure we had plenty of time for that, if that works for everyone.
Do we want to do that or start at 10?
I can move these things if we really need to. I have another meeting from 11 to 12:30. And then I'm pretty much good for the rest of the day.
I had scheduled a meeting at 3, thinking that we'd get through our retreat by then. How do we have, Brian, is it just us coming? Or do we
Yes.
have the facilitators not
It's just
scheduled?
us. It's just us.
I mean, we could just reschedule the thing to it when we have sufficient time and try to get it on all of our calendars.
Yeah, let's do that when Randy, we can maybe talk about with Randy when he's here on Friday.
Yeah, I apologize that somehow didn't make it onto my calendar. I guess the only thing I would say is it seems like 90 minutes should be maybe even enough for the entire discussion, or at least to put a really good dent in it. But with that said, I will defer to the group's wishes.
Yeah, I don't know that it will be. I'm just mentioning that because if we decide to discuss board procedures and outlines such as the things like that, it may take longer. Because I'm sure the board would want to, each member will want to provide significant input on that.
And I remember way back in the day when I got elected, we had some sort of a guideline. It was pretty high level. Are we talking about revisiting that and maybe beefing it up a little bit?
Yeah, the guideline that you're talking about was more of a rules of conduct and
Exactly.
among the commissioners, whereas I'm thinking more of just some more technical issues, such as how we are going to consider our minutes, how we might address the name of the chair, who's currently named as a chairman, things like that, little things that ultimately can be cleaned up in a resolution. And I thought it would be a good thing to at least run that by the board and go through those things and get their input before we ever, move towards that.
That makes sense. Do you have like a draft already created, or you want to talk and then create the draft and then approve it later?
I will have a draft ready for whenever we have the retreat. I'll give it to you a few days in advance. I've just been working on it and making notes over time. So I'll just put something together. I may put bullet points rather than have an actual resolution to consider. And then we can discuss those and I'd bring back a resolution for a subsequent meeting.
Got it. Yeah, with all that said, I agree that it shouldn't be something that's rushed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the meeting on the 19th, does that begin? The meeting on the 22nd, which is Friday, does that begin at 8:30? Okay, and then the plan is now not to have a meeting on the 25th, and we'll come up with a new date and provide notice, of course, for that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, in the week of May 2nd, I should be operational again for sure.
I mean, and I could tentatively, I could just block Monday the 2nd. It's not too late for me to do that.
I have a brand new employee starting that day.
Yeah, okay. Actually, that week, the 5th and the 6th, I've got a fair amount of time as well, but I know we don't need to get too far down the scheduling rabbit hole without Randy here.
Yeah, right now the 5th and the 6th for me are completely open. So maybe keep that in mind, and yes.
Okay.
To say on
The
Friday.
6th will work. we've got a headhunter coming in on the 5th to meet with us about a recruitment we're about to conduct.
I'm
on
just
that
gonna
Thursday.
optimistically put something tentative on for the 6th.
Yeah, I'll just block my day out right now, just so that it doesn't get scheduled by someone else.
Okay. Deal.
All right, cool. Anything else?
Sean, just really quick, high school graduation, there, an invite is gonna be sent to you to the county mailbox. I sent an email heads up. It's the 21st at 10 o'clock.
As in 2 days from now?
No, as in 21st of May.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, and they're not asking for words or anything, just, you know.
Yep, sure, there's better people than us to have say something in that event.
Yeah.
Actually, it does bring up one thing, the commissioners, mayor's awards, isn't that coming up sometime soon, or did that already happen? The one at the Easter Seals? Isn't it usually in April or May?
It is coming up soon. I don't know the date.
It used to be Donna, and I think, has she retired?
Yes.
Who's doing it now? Or is that the reason why we're not having a conversation about it?
No, Tracy Troy is handling it now. I know there's been talk about it. I just haven't heard the exact date yet.
Okay.
Yeah, no, my latest email doesn't have a date yet either.
Usually on a Sunday in April.
Yeah.
Like not too far from Easter. Okay, any other final items or comments? All right, then we're adjourned. Our next meeting is this Friday at 8:30. I'll see everyone then.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you all.